All right, start again.
All right, guys. So we've got a great WOD today. We're going to start with a Tabata warm-up, beginning with singles, doubles, or calf raises. Calf raises are going to look like this. If you have a rope at home, this is a great time, though, to be working on those double unders during these warm-ups. So then we're going to move into air squats. So, I'm like hunched over to fit into this video.
There you go.
There we go. So for air squats, we're going to start with our feet outside of hip width, initiating with the hips, driving all the way down past parallel, and then pushing up through the heels to full hip extension, keeping that chest nice and big the entire time. Then we're going to go to push-ups, starting in that plank position, going all the way down, shoulders and hips at the same time, and coming back up at the same time. We can scale by going to our knees, bringing the shoulders down. This really helps work the core. And then we can snake up and snake down, lowering hips then shoulders, and then going back up, shoulders then hips. That helps develop more shoulder strength. All right, then we've got burpees. So we can drop all the way down to the ground, bringing both feet back up at the same time and out overhead. Or you can scale by stepping back 1 foot at a time, still going all the way to the ground, and then stepping forward 1 foot at a time and still out overhead. All right, then we will go back to singles, doubles, or calf raises. And then we've got jumping squats. So in that squat stance, going all the way past parallel and then jumping out of the squat. Then we've got stink bugs. So we're gonna have a wider stance for this. Feet and hands are closer together than a normal push-up. And then we're going to bring our head in between our hands and then locking all the way back out. What we don't want to do is to plant with our face first. That's not cool. All right, then we've got lunges. So in that squat stance, we're going to step out, placing that back knee to the ground and alternating. Okay. All right. So for Wednesday's WOD, we've got a fun chipper. This one is really cool because you have lots of elements to get through, so it seems really hard and tedious, but the cool thing is you get to rest every other minute for 1 minute. So both core and one-day WODers, you've got that rest to look forward to. So for core, you're going to do 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups, 10 deadlift, 10 air squats, 10 hang high pulls, 10 strict press, 10 bent over row, 10 more hang high pulls, and 10 burpees. For one-day WODers, you guys are going to do 10 man makers. We understand that most of us only have one dumbbell at home, so Levi's going to show us what that's going to look like with one dumbbell. 20 sit-ups, 30 deadlift, 40 jumping squats, 50 hang power cleans, 40 shoulder to overhead, see it's starting to go downhill, 30 bent over row, 20 snatches, and 10 burpees. All right, Levi's going to show us what these look like.
All right, so since we got a lot of stuff to cover, I'm just gonna start with the core and go through all of that, and then we'll go through the one-day WOD next. Starting with the core, we start out with 10 push-ups. We demonstrated that in the warm-up, so we're not going to go over that again. Sit-ups. So these are just butterfly sit-ups. So we're going to touch our feet together like so, all the way back, touching our shoulders, and then coming back up where our shoulders pass the hip crease. That is one. So you have 10 of those, and then you go straight into 10 deadlifts. So deadlifts, if you have a band and you want maximum amount of resistance, is you can just lay that band flat on the ground, find the resistance you like by setting your feet at different widths, and then we're going to pull either one band and back down, or you could, if you needed more resistance, you could pull two, standing all the way up and back down. So we're using our hamstrings on this. So we're not squatting down to grab that and standing back up. We're loading the hamstrings and standing up using our glutes and our hamstrings and our back. We want to keep that back flat the entire time so that we're not putting extra strain or torsion on our back. Then we have air squats, which we covered in the warm-up. And then our hang high pulls. So this is going to be, we can do this with the band actually. With the band going middle of our foot, find that right width, and then we're pulling, keeping elbows high. Switching, pull, keep elbow high. Alright, so that's our hanging high pull with a band. With the dumbbell, we want to come that same position where the dumbbell is right at our knees, keeping the back flat, pulling up with our hips and our shoulders, keeping the elbow high the entire time. So again, okay, like your pull starting a lawnmower. Do the same thing with the kettlebell. Again, starting from that hang position and pulling. Make sure you're being violent with that hip extension, that stand-up movement, so that gives you a little bit of momentum on that weight, so you're not pulling quite as far. Use both of those, work on that technique. After that, you've got 10 strict press. Strict press with a band. One arm at a time, put one foot in, bring it up to that shoulder height, and then just press straight out. Slow and controlled. Control the movement the entire time. Don't let that band pull you out of position. Same thing with a weight. Starting from the shoulder position, straight up, straight back down. No movement in the legs or the hips. And then with the dumbbell, same as well. You've got 10 of those, split it up evenly, right and left. Then we have bent over rows. Bent over rows is not something we're gonna do with the band, but with the weighted elements, all we're gonna do is keeping that flat back. We're gonna push the hips back just a little bit to where that weight is just hanging in front of us, and then we're pulling, bringing our elbow back as far as possible. Try not to pull yourself down into this. You wanna keep your chest and your torso in the same spot the entire time. You can rotate with the shoulder as you come around. Same thing on the other side. I'll do it with the dumbbell. Same concept. Here, here. Don't rush these too much to where you're twisting your torso too much. Control it the entire time. Then you've got your hang high pulls again, just like we demonstrated earlier, and then 10 burpees, which we also covered in the warm-up. So that is all the core stuff. Now for the one-day stuff, we've got 10 man makers. So typically we do man makers with 2 dumbbells, and if you have 2 dumbbells, it's the same movement, just with 2 dumbbells. So you got 2 dumbbells, 1 in each hand. I'm gonna demonstrate it with 1 because I think that's what most of us have, is just the 1. It's not something you do with a kettlebell. Do not try this with a kettlebell. You will probably end up hurting yourself. That was cool.
That was cool.
So man maker with 1 arm. So man maker starts out with a push-up on the dumbbell, and then you're gonna do a plank row with the dumbbell, and then you're gonna pop up and do a squat clean thruster with the dumbbell. What that looks like is this. You might want to keep your legs wide in this position because of the row. So it's down, push up, row, squat clean, thruster. That's 1. Now switch to the other side, do the same thing on the other side. Wide stance, push up, row, squat clean, thruster. Those are man makers. They're fun. You've got 10 of those. Then 20 sit-ups. Demonstrated that earlier. You got this. Deadlifts with the weighted elements. I don't think I covered this on the core. Core's actually got deadlifts as well. I didn't cover it with the weighted elements. But you got a couple options. Either A, put that element in between, use both hands, stand up and back down, or you can suitcase, do it with 1 hand, same thing, back down. The suitcase option with either the kettlebell or the dumbbell is going to work your core a lot more. Make sure you even it out on both sides, and so that way you're getting the same amount of work on both sides as you do that. But it's your choice whether you want to do it from the middle with 2 hands, on the side with 1 hand. It's completely up to you. Then we have jumping squats. So jumping squats is just an air squat that we're going to leave the ground at the top. So feet outside the hips, all the way down and leave the ground. Down and leave the ground. You got 40 of those. Hang clean pulls. Hang power cleans with the dumbbell. Same thing as the pulls that we just demonstrated. We're going to start in that hang position, flat back. We're just going to follow it through with the turnover at the top, bringing that elbow forward. So again, 1, 2, alternating. With the kettlebell, you could do the same thing. Pull, just careful with that catch on the top. Pull. Again, sorry, that's coming from the hang position. So you're going to have to switch in midair when you switch hands. Then we have shoulder to overhead. So with either element, this is any shoulder to overhead. So that is either strict press, push press, or push jerk. The difference is strict press, bottom half or the bottom part of your torso is completely locked out, using all arm and shoulder to press ahead. With a push press, switch elements just to show the difference. We're going to use our hips and our legs to help launch this up over our head. So here, press, lock out, and press out. So with the push press, I'm still using my hips to help generate movement, but then I'm locking them out at the top and pressing the remaining amount. So again, and lock it out. And then finally, for the push jerk, the only difference here is same thing as the push press, dipping, driving out overhead, but I'm gonna drop underneath the weight so that I don't have to use my shoulder or arm at all to press out. So down, down. Make sure you stand up all the way, shoulder and elbow locked out at the top to finish the movement. Then we have bent over rows, 30 of them. Just covered that on the core side, so you should be good to go on that. And 20 snatches. These snatches are coming from the ground and they will look like this with the kettlebell. Soft turnover at the top. Make sure you're not having that kettlebell come back and smack you on the wrist. Dumbbell, same way. Both heads of the bell touching the ground every time. Pull out overhead, swap hands, pull. We're alternating on these, so you got to switch each time. Make sure you're using that hip drive to launch this weight out overhead and you're locking it out at the top before you switch. All right, and then last but not least is the burpees. We'll cover that. Once you get to that, there's only 10 of them. Push through them, get done. Remember, you're working for a minute, resting for a minute. So push through as many as you can in a minute, rest, and then pick a target for that next minute. Say, all right, got 7 of my man makers done in the first minute. I'm gonna finish my man makers and get all my sit-ups done in that next minute of work.